My name is Chase Horvath. I've been working with Aspera Technologies for close to 8 years now. I was a Aspera customer before IBM brought me in, and then IBM brought me on as a tech seller. Today, we're going to talk about how you can grow your deal with Aspera. So even if you're not an Aspera seller, how can you use Aspera to sell more of the software that you do sell? We're only going to take 30 minutes. It's lunchtime, it's the end of the quarter, so this is going to be pretty compact. Because of that, I'll ask everyone to kind of hold their questions until the end of the presentation. That should only take 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll open it up to questions. So what exactly we're going to cover today? Cover real quick, what is Aspera and how does it bring value? How can it grow your deal even though you may not be an Aspera seller? And when do you know to possibly add it? When you know to broach the subject with a customer or contact an Aspera expert? And then I'll do a quick review of what kind of resources are available to help you do that. So what exactly is Aspera? Basically, Aspera is a piece of software that moves data over any network as fast as possible. So big networks, little networks, bandwidth, highly bandwidth constrained, high latency, high packet loss, very challenging networks. That's where we really excel. We are actually the fastest and the most resilient, so we are a definite market leader in this space. Because we're a market leader, we sell very well, and we actually have a lot of proof points that help us sell even more. One, we are in some of the most secure and critical networks that the government has to offer. That's the Intel space and the DoD space. We're very prevalent there. We move a lot of data for them every day, and we help them maximize the investment they have in their networks. A lot of times the federal networks are in themselves challenging, and the federal space is very spread out. They need to send data all over the world. So we do really well there, and we help them a lot. In fact, we get rid of the problem of moving the data, and we let them get back to their mission. So why was Aspera made? What was wrong with what we were doing before? Well, the way everybody else typically moves data is with TCP. So TCP is the primary protocol of communicating on the internet. It works really, really well for like kind of very chatty back and forth communication, such as browsing a website, sending or receiving emails, those sorts of things. So it's the primary way of sending data on the internet, but it has a lot of limitations when it comes to sending data. And I'm talking large data over any kind of distance. TCP works really well when you're hardwired up to the person next to you, and you have a really great connection with low latency. But as soon as you start to introduce things like round trip time, also known as ping, or latency and packet loss, or basically the amount of data that gets lost on the trip there and back, you'll find that TCP tends to plummet in its throughput. Its actual network utilization goes in the sub 5% or really fast. So as soon as you try to move out of the building with TCP, you start to really get a lot of loss. And you paid for a big network connection, the internet, right? You paid for this giant multi-gigabit connection, and now you're only able to get 5% of it. And you're also not able to do the transfers that you wanted to and you thought you would. So enter the Aspera FAST protocol. FAST is the underlying protocol behind all of the Aspera products. And what it does is it gets around the problems of round trip time and packet loss and a couple of other smaller things that hamper TCP's ability to transfer data. So what that means is that you can go with Aspera, you can go, in the same room, or you can go all the way around the world, and you will get almost 99% of your rated wire speed of that network. And that's a really powerful thing to suddenly go from not being able to move data at all to being able to move data from DC to Tokyo over a satellite internet connection, or from Antarctica to anywhere else in the world over satellite and radio internet connection, and move large amounts of data. That's a game changer. It opens up a lot of new use cases and capabilities. We didn't just stop there, right? It's not enough just to be fast. You also have to be a lot of other things to sell in the government space. So yeah, we are the market leader in speed and resiliency. We go up to hundreds and hundreds of times faster than TCP, but we also do it with any transfer size or volume of files. So that means I can transfer multi-terabyte files all the way around the world, or I can also transfer millions and millions of small files that equal multiple terabytes all around the world, and I'll get the same network throughput regardless. And that's important because almost all of our competitors, and especially TCP, they get bogged down in the metadata on those files. All the the titles of the files, all the created on dates and modified dates ends up being a big problem for it to transfer as well. We don't get bogged down in that. Kind of in the same fashion, we are secure, predictable, and reliable. And I group all three of those together because of those are all based on the type of cryptography that we use. It's pretty standard what you get out of like the public key or token or sorry certificate-based cryptography, but it's who sent it is the only person who could have sent it. Who received it is the only person who could have received it, and no one can read it or change it in between, which is pretty standard stuff. But the way we group it and hash it and chunk it up and make it easy for our protocol to send means that we are reliable. We can transfer data via a math equation to find out how long it's going to take you. So the equation to find out how long a transfer is going to take you really just sums up to your file size divided by your network speed. And it works that way every time because we're so resilient to changes in those network conditions. And we're also very predictable in that fact because of the way we can, sorry, that's why we're predictable. We're reliable because of the way we chunk it up and the way we do the cryptography. We can guarantee that an exact copy bit for bit is what the person is receiving. We also have adaptive bandwidth control, and this should be in red bold font at the very beginning of this slideshow, but I'm going to cover this in depth on the next slide. It's a big market differentiator for us. Other than that, I really want to bring out that Aspera is pretty simple for customers to install and get going. All the stock settings in it and all the stock configurations in it will do a pretty decent job and get great speeds. If they have some special network conditions, like they're using some satellite uplinks and some proprietary things like that, you can get in and tune it and get very technical with it and get really good results on top of what you're already getting. All right, now about that adaptive rate control. One of the things Aspera does is basically move data as fast as possible over existing networks without overcrowding the network. All of our competitors will have things like set rate data transfers, which means they target a certain data transfer rate, which means they're overcrowding the network in most situations. Other users on the network, when you're doing high-speed transfers with our competitors, are typically greatly affected because the network becomes oversaturated. Aspera basically takes and measures itself many, many times per second to use the other 95% of the network. Remember, because TCP typically only uses about 5% of your network, the other 95% of your network, and use it for high-speed data transfer, which means we're moving huge amounts of data in the background and other users on the network don't even know about it. So that's one of the beauties of Aspera. That's one of the patented secret sauce solutions in here, and it's a great differentiator for us. Let's talk about use cases for Aspera. These are a few of the common use cases that we usually see Aspera implemented in. And I bring this up because remember, nobody is moving data for the sake of it. Everybody has something to do with that data. No one's mission is just to move data for the sake of it. They've got something to do. So we see these scenarios commonly helping them complete their mission. And the first is transfer over challenging networks. And this use case is going to perforate into everything because Aspera works really well here. Especially in the federal space, you've got older networks, you've got mixed medium networks like satellite, radio, ad hoc radio networks, those sorts of things. You've got a lot of different types of data, and it has to go all over the world because the federal government operates all over the world. We really excel here. And again, this perforates into every Aspera use case, being able to do this and being able to do it very well. The next being secure collaboration. You've got teams all over the place and they need to share data. Time is money, time is productivity, time is the effectiveness of your mission, and we help them get that data there faster or at all. Like I said, remember, we have customers at far reaches of the planet who would otherwise be unable to send their data, and we enable that. Looking at aggregation and distribution, this is the bringing in, the collection, the submission to you of lots and lots of data, where We help them submit that very quickly. And we also have a workflow engine built in. It's a very powerful automation and workflow engine that can do the analysis, reorganize it, and then distribute it back out to where it needs to go. And then all the way on the right, you got, disaster migration, disaster recovery, migration, backup. These are pretty obvious things. You've got a customer who their backups have grown over the years, and now by the time they are ready to start taking a new backup, their old backup isn't even done transferring to their offsite backup location, or they might have some SLAs or something like that to meet. This is a great scenario for Aspera. It really alleviates that problem, gets it done faster, and helps the customer achieve their mission. Now, with the information you just learned, that very brief overview of Aspera, how are you going to use this to grow the sale of the software that you yourself sell, or that you yourself are compensated for? And that's when you find a scenario where the data transfer is in the way of the customer's mission. We may be able to use Aspera in such a way that allows them to complete their mission better, that also leads to you selling more of whatever software it is that you sell. Following on to that, and I ripped this slide right out of an AI presentation, and it really points to a big problem that we have. 73% of the data that we have today goes unused. And not only do we want to tap into that, but a big portion of the reason it goes unused is because we can't move it. It's stuck wherever it is. We can't get it to the place that we want to do the synthesis on or the analysis on. So let's look at some actual theoretical examples of places where including Aspera in your solution would help you sell more of the software that you have. Let's look at it from an AI standpoint and from a machine learning standpoint, from a general analysis standpoint. These people are very concerned about sample size. They're very concerned about how they collect the data, avoiding things like collection bias and having representative sizes of their data. So being able to collect more data is good for them. They would like to do that. Aspera can help them do that. And if they're able to do that, say you're able to increase the amount of data they have from 1 terabyte to 10 or 50 terabytes of data per day that they're able to collect and analyze, they would definitely buy more cores of whatever analytics software you're selling them in order to get that job done. And they might even hire more analysts to do more work on it, leading to more software use, leading to more sales. Let's look at another thing with replication, because that's a major use case for Aspera. Let's say you have a customer who is right now has the requirement to have an offsite backup or a failover, and right now they have a cold site, and they would love to have a hot site. They would love to be able to immediately fail over and have no disruption in their operations, but they have a cold site instead because they can't replicate the data, their live production data, to their cold site fast enough to make it relevant to bring it up and make it relevant to have a real-time failover. So they're using a cold site. Guess what? 99% of the time, those servers are off. They're not being licensed. They're not paying for licenses for those servers that are off. They would love to go to a hot site. Enable them to go to a hot site, and they'll buy the licenses because that's what they want to do. So you've just, possibly doubled the VPC purchase of whatever you're selling. Let's back it way out and talk about user experience. Typically Aspera gives a faster, easier, less frustration across the board for whatever software it's integrated in. That means your users like it more. They tell people about it. That leads to more use. There's more demand for that product, and it just snowballs on itself. I think these are pretty hypothetical, theoretical, but they're real. Let's talk about an actual performance increase, an actual product that works so well with Aspera integrated into it, or with Aspera alongside it, that we actually now include it. And I'm talking about MQ Advanced. Charts, you don't actually have to know what they mean precisely. You don't have to be an MQ expert to understand this, but basically this is MQ trying to replicate its queue across the United States. This was an East Coast to West Coast queue replication, and we basically improved the replication speed by 3-fold. The send rate went up 3 times. The time to complete went down by almost 1/3, or down to 1/3 of what it was. This is a speed increase and a capability increase that actually opens up new use cases. Looking at that further, looking at the queues, so this is Aspera enabling MQ to send things between queue managers more quickly. Um, every bar on these graphs, regardless of color, is typically bad. And on the left is without Aspera, and on the right is with Aspera. That's a performance increase that, again, opens up new use cases. So there's the proof this really works. We do have products, and there are products that Aspera can really assist in and help you sell more of. So you're probably thinking, you're not an Aspera expert. How do I know when I should be calling someone in Aspera to really look at a situation, decide if it can help? How do I know that there might be a data transfer problem behind the problem that my customers are having? And I'm not going to read these off to you. You can read the list, but if you hear things, generally related to wait times, failed transfers that they have to restart, data inaccessibility, difficulty meeting SLAs, call me or call an Aspera expert. It'll take us less than 10 minutes to give you an answer of, will Aspera be able to help here? And then, if you're going to be able to grow the deal or even present this to a customer and say, hey, can we help you achieve your mission even more? These are some kind of general, positive business outcomes that we see from some of our Aspera customers. And you read them, you might think, well, these are actually, pretty common across a lot of our products, more timely and relevant results. Okay, well, I could say that about a lot of products, but back it up. And pertaining to a lot of the solutions that we sell, the things that cause customers to have these goals are commonly related to data transfer speeds, commonly related to the customer problems I just showed you on the previous slide: wait times, failed transfers, data inaccessibility, those sorts of things. So really, anywhere that time is money or time is effectiveness, or the mission previously could not be completed because of a data transfer issue, that's where Aspera really wants to come in and play. It really wants to help you enhance the solution that you are pitching to this customer and help you sell the software, sell more of the software than you thought you could. So that's the end of my spiel. These are some of the resources that can help you to learn more about this and who to contact, where to go. We have a couple of Aspera video presentations up on YouTube. They're super short, super fast. They just help you learn really quickly, and it helps you give a primer to your customers as well if you want. In the seismic sales kit for Aspera, there is a whole host of white papers, use cases, and industry case studies that get pretty technical and pretty detailed about how exactly we help them and what kind of data was being moved. And I encourage you to go through there and see if there's anything kind of relevant to any of your customers doing. And we think, oh, government is an industry on itself, but it actually touches most industries because it has a whole lot of different things that it does. And then finally, you have folks like me, Chase Horvath, and then my partner, Pamela Curry. We are your primary tech sellers for Aspera. We've been doing this for a very long time, Pam, even more than I. So that's how you can go to contact. And I'll make these slides available to everybody. Either I'll attach them somewhere or send them on an email or put them up in Box and email everyone who's here so that you can have them. And now I'm going to let people, or you can already unmute yourself. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody and take some questions.
Hey, Chase, Greg.
Hey, Greg.
So this FASP protocol, I'm just trying to understand how it works over an existing internet. Like the internet that we know it, all the connections between all these servers is purely TCP based, right? I mean,
right.
So does FASP fit on top of TCP?
It does. It actually, what it does is it combines all the good stuff about TCP and all the good stuff about UDP and uses a TCP connection, basically uses a TCP connection to manage a UDP connection.
Okay.
And
so it's really using UDP, and that's where it gets the performance from.
Right. But there's a lot of problems, as I already stated, with straight UDP solutions, and we're able to go totally lossless UDP and not overcrowd networks and get really good performance and stuff like that. So kind of hitting on that, there's nothing because it just uses it's a different way of managing existing technologies for the most part. There is no need to do any sort of intermediary network monitoring or changing of any settings or installing of agents anywhere. It is a software solution at the point of origin and the point of destination of this transfer. Nothing needs to be done in between other than ports being open.
How about like big blocks or something like that? Does any kind of TCP tuning need to be done specifically for FASP? take
We can
advantage
handle
of
that,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey Chase, Lance Adams here. Good
Hey, Lance.
presentation. Quick question. So is there, and my question will be a bit less technical than Greg's. Is there a size limit on files? So if a customer is talking like, yeah, I got these, 30 meg, 30 gig, 40 terabyte size things I need. Is there a certain size area that we should go, that would be good for Aspera?
Nope. We can do the biggest files. We can do the smallest files. We can also do streaming. So if you have constantly growing files, or if you have real-time video that you need, we can even stream log files out, stuff like that. And the term large file is really based on how good your network is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a a 1 megabit satellite connection with 2 seconds round trip time and 10% loss, you can't even browse a website on that. But Aspera will allow you to get almost wire speed for a data transfer.
Hmm.
So there's enough room on there to start the transfer and then use that bandwidth. So someone who previously would have a whole lot of trouble sending an email is now able to send, large research files, imagery, things like that.
All right, cool. Thanks.
And that plays up to large networks too. I like to give the small use case because a lot of times that's what we see in the government. But as big as the operating system will handle, basically, which is as new file systems come out, that gets bigger and bigger and better and better.
Hi, Chase. Sunil here. Sorry, I joined a little late. So if you
Yeah, no
cover
worries.
this, I apologize. But when you answered Lance's question, you said something about streaming log files. Is that, I
Uh-huh.
thought streaming was just for video. Is this a new capability or is this something we already had? And is there a use case for people streaming log files?
All right. So streaming is a kind of overloaded term a lot of the time. Streaming in our case really refers to a a a bit of data that's coming in that's always growing. So like a log file is always having things appended to it. Well, a video file that's being streamed is also just always having things appended to it. And I'm talking in the case of like a live camera feed, and that it's being stored and then it's being transferred. So we stream lots of different types of data. Uh, like take for example, like sensor data. Let's say thermometer somewhere takes a reading every 3 seconds, or a barometer takes a reading 100 times a second, and it writes those to a file somewhere. And if you want to get that file anywhere other than locally, you need to, in real time, you need to stream it. So Aspera allows us to stream that data lossless, which is very important because lots of streaming technologies are not lossless, in very near real time, um, to anywhere in the world. And when it comes to video, what that means is that we can go much faster, get you much higher quality video over the same connection than you would be able to using other streaming technologies.
Okay, great. And then
All right, we're
another
coming up
question,
on half an hour. Are there any other questions?
just another one, Chase. If you
Yeah.
are going to an existing customer and
Mhm.
trying to describe what's new that that's kind of unique
What's
about
new
our
with
product.
Aspera, like in the past year or so?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say what's new with it in Aspera in the past year is one, we have a Kubernetes or OpenShift based distribution that allows us to scale our bandwidth up infinitely. So we can actually, before we moved to containers, we could um, we could cluster nodes, we could cluster virtual machines together, but now we can cluster containers on separate Kubernetes nodes or separate OpenShift nodes, which means we can, for a high speed transfer, we can actually um, bring together, aggregate all the bandwidth available on all the network interface cards across all of your Kubernetes nodes and use that to send. So our available bandwidth, the way in which we scale up, just became, for now, I'll call it infinite. I'm sure looking back on this in 50 years, we'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe we're only sending that much. But for now, it's unfathomable, how fast we can go. I would say another new technology we have is our gateway, which basically allows you to make a tunnel on the internet and connect 2 points. And it can do very back and forth type talking, very ACK-NAC. That's actually the product that we use to integrate into that MQ scenario, because that MQ is very back and forth. You wouldn't want Aspera, basically packaging up one message that MQ has to send and landing it on the MQ server, unpackaging it, giving it to the MQ server, and the MQ server saying, okay, send this acknowledgement back. What we do is we create a tunnel in between them, and all that traffic is just automatically forwarded. And it forwards using the fast protocol, but it's already a point-to-point connection, so you're not like restarting and dropping the connection, and it's also bidirectional. So that's a very, very powerful thing, and we're just, even though it's been GA'd for about a year now, we're actually just learning how powerful it is and learning about all the really cool stuff we can do with that.
Thanks, Chase. Great.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for your time. I'm going to stop the recording and end the slideshow. And feel free to email me if you have any questions. I'll make sure everybody who attended is able to get this slideshow so that you can use it. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chase.
Bye, everybody.
Chase.